What is up, bros and broettes? I'm Inkslasher, and today we're going to be talking about a leak that actually happened a while ago, but I've seen a lot of, first of all, comments on a lot of my YouTube videos. On top of that, a lot of posts on Reddit about these couple things, and I wanted to address them and talk about how legitimate the leak was, first of all, and then more properly talk about how legitimate Spectre and Reaper actually coming to Black Ops 4 would actually be. So where did this leak come from? First of all, I believe this was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. This group called the Woo Lads went out and basically data mined the Black Ops 4 beta. And this was only the multiplayer beta, keep that in mind for a second. And what they found is two things. First of all, they found there was files naming Spectre as a character. As we all know, Spectre is one of the most favorited specialist characters from Black Ops 3, and now they're seeing files in Black Ops 4 for him. Also, there was another file showing off Reaper, and what it was specifically showing off was an idea that an arm could be used as a minigun, similar to Reaper in Black Ops 4. It didn't mention the name Reaper anywhere, it didn't mention a robot. All it mentioned was that arm that could be turned into a minigun, almost like another specialist weapon or ability. So my very first thought when I first saw this information wasn't that they were going to be in the multiplayer. My first thought was, yeah, this makes sense. I could definitely see these characters being added into Blackout, because as we know, there's going to be many characters released in Blackout that you can unlock through challenges, and they've already announced that these are going to be from every Black Ops game. 1, 2, 3, and even other games, they said it's a possibility that they get added. So for Spectre and Reaper and any other character that's been in a Black Ops game, it's more than possible. In fact, I would say it's 100% likely that those will be in Blackout at one point or another. But the big question is, are they going to be bringing Reaper and Spectre to multiplayer? So let's look at facts to support both sides of the argument. First, starting off with why it wouldn't make sense for them to be in the game at launch. So one of the biggest pieces of evidence to say no, it won't happen is if you read promotional material for Black Ops 4, it often states, play as our 10 iconic specialist characters, something along those lines. So at launch, for them to have 12 specialist characters, that would go up against their promotional material. That being said, we already know that Call of Duty, Treyarch, Black Ops are not opposed to adding in extra characters throughout the life cycle. And in fact, I would be surprised if they didn't add extra specialist characters every couple months throughout the lifetime of Black Ops 4. So simply based off of that evidence and that evidence alone, that shows that at launch of the game, Spectre and Reaper probably won't be there. But throughout the lifetime, throughout the next year, for them to be added, it would be pretty likely. So actually, as I'm editing this video, I actually went and did some fact checking to see which different promotional material stated 10 specialist characters. And I know I've read that before, but when looking at the promotional material, it appears that that information has either been removed or I read it wrong. So as of right now, in all the promotional material on Amazon, GameStop, and even on the Black Ops 4 website itself, it says nothing about 10 specialist characters. So basically, some of the things I just said are actually fake news, and basically it is possible that at launch of the game, there is more than 10 specialist characters. Now, the next thing I wanted to look at is, would it make sense for them to be in the game based off of the background and lore of these two characters? So first, let's start out with Reaper. Reaper, if you didn't already know, his real name, if you want to call it that, is Experimental War Robot 115. If you think it's a coincidence that it's 115, the zombies element number, it's definitely on purpose. It's a little Easter egg there. But aside from that, Reaper was designed by the Coalescence Corporation. The Coalescence Corporation, if you don't already know, is basically like a global defense front built to protect against basically the bad guys in Black Ops 3, and they created this robot. Now, in-game, it doesn't actually give a date when they started making these robots. All we know is that they are a limited amount of these robots and that they were made close to the events of Black Ops 3. So we know Black Ops 3 takes place in 2065. If we look at the Wikipedia for Reaper, it says his birth date is July 19th, 2063. This Wikipedia has been wrong on other specialist birth dates, so take that number with a grain of salt. But let's just take that year, for example, 2063. Does that make sense with Black Ops 4? So as of right now, we don't have a specific year that Black Ops 4 takes place. We know it's between the events of Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3. Black Ops 2 taking place in 2025, Black Ops 3 taking place in 2065. We also know it's after 2045, generally speaking, closer to the events of Black Ops 3. So technically it makes sense, but if Black Ops 4 took place in 2063 and Black Ops 3 took place in 2065, you'd see a lot more similarities between the specialist characters, and as I compared the specialist characters between the two games, there is some very large differences between the two, including surgeries of different prosthetics that certain specialists have in Black Ops 3 that they don't have in Black Ops 4. So there is a large discrepancy there, and I doubt that Black Ops 4 is taking place in 2063, therefore it wouldn't really make sense lore-wise to have Reaper as a character. But there may be something that they added into the game to make an exception. Maybe there is an experimental war robot that isn't as far advanced as Reaper was, and it will be called like Reaper 1.0 or something like that, and maybe they find a loophole like that to bring Reaper into the game. But as far as lore goes, it doesn't make 100% sense for have Reaper, the exact same character as Black Ops 3, in Black Ops 4. So next up we have Spectre, and Spectre is completely different than what we just talked about. As far as Spectre goes, we really don't know anything about it, her, him. We don't even know. We don't know the gender of the character. We don't know the name. So there's really not much to talk about lore-wise here. But the thing I wanted to point at is the fact that they created this big mystery behind Spectre in Black Ops 3. They didn't explain to us a birth date, a backstory, really anything about Spectre. So to take that character that they've created this big mystery about and remove it from the Black Ops series altogether doesn't really make any sense. So I think out of the two characters, it would make the most sense to bring Spectre back in Black Ops 4. That way, when they introduce the specialist missions, we're actually able to see a little bit of a backstory of Spectre. Maybe tell what the gender is, the name. Any information about Spectre, to me, would be pretty interesting. So for Spectre not to be in Black Ops 4 at one point or another, whether they add him 6 months down the road or a year down the road, I really wouldn't be surprised to see Spectre added whatsoever. And that brings us to our final piece of evidence, the leak itself. So it came from these guys called the Woo Lads, who have got several predictions correct in the past, the biggest one being DLC 4 for Call of Duty World War II. Now if you go and look at their leak for that, it's very clear the way that they found out about this was from data mining. In their article that they posted, they made it sound like they had an inside source, but based off of the leaks that they've provided in the past, it's very, very, very clear that what they are doing is data mining the game, looking for information, extra files within the files of the game, and then basing their predictions off of that. The reason why I know this is because when they leaked DLC 4, all the names they provided for the maps were the code names that were in the code of the game, and not some insider information that they're getting from developers at Activision, Sledgehammer, or Treyarch altogether. So what we know is that all of the information that they are providing is data mined. So, based off of them finding files for Spectre and Reaper, what can we come to a conclusion about? I think the main thing is that in one form or another, these two characters will be implemented in the game. Whether they're just implemented as blackout characters is probably the most likely option, or whether they're implemented as extra specialist characters further down the road during DLC time, or just as a random add to the game, wouldn't be surprising whatsoever. So, to answer the question, do I think these specialist characters are going to be in the game? I do believe that Spectre at one point or another will be added into multiplayer, but I do believe both will be added into Blackout as playable characters in one form or another. But that brings me to my final point, the summary of this entire video. Do I think that they should or are going to add extra specialist characters throughout Black Ops 4? And the easy answer for this is yes, absolutely, 100%. I think specialist characters will be added once every 2 to 3 months, if you ask me. The reason why I think this is because it seems like this whole specialist characters thing, they're taking a page out of Rainbow Six's book. And Rainbow Six is adding different characters and playable strategies all the time. Another big thing that they are pushing with Black Ops 4 is they want it to be more of a tactical game, and one way to create this is by adding extra specialist characters to change the actual meta of the game. The only problem that this would cause is it would cause pro players to have to get used to more specialist characters in pro play, assuming that they're going to try to keep multiplayer public matches as similar to competitive as possible. Speaking of which, we know that they are trying to do this because in a, I guess you could call it a press conference that COD World League did today, they announced that competitive play is going to be 5v5 this year in competitive Call of Duty. Similarly, they are trying to match the normal public match play of Black Ops 4. And we know from the past that competitive Call of Duty doesn't like to allow DLC weapons into competitive play, as it pretty much screws with the meta of competitive ranked play. So I wouldn't be surprised for them if they introduce extra specialist characters to leave those out of competitive as well. But really, only time will tell. The one thing I can guarantee you is throughout the life cycle of Black Ops 4, they're going to be adding in new content, new maps, new weapons, and really, I wouldn't be surprised if they add new specialist characters. Maybe some of them being Reaper and Spectre. But if you ask me, Spectre will eventually be there. Reaper, we'll have to wait and see. But if you guys disagree with me, agree with me, you can let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, I'd very much appreciate it if you could hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel and like what you see, the best way to stay up to date on my videos is to hit that subscribe button and make sure you have notifications turned on. But guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, peace out.
Maybe you should take it slow.